Hi, this is Jack Stanley, and I wanted to talk a little bit about sound recording because, sound recording is an amazing thing and something we really don't even think about very much. You see, the phonograph was invented in 1877, in late 1877, of course, by Thomas Edison. He wasn't the first to have an idea of recording sound, but he was the first to record the sound and be able to reproduce it. Of course, we have the phonograph, which predates Edison by many years, but its objective initially was basically to map out sounds, to be used to a degree as a parlor trick, to basically give you an indication or understanding of sound waves. There really wasn't a desire, or at least initial plan, to reproduce it. Now, most recently, several of these tracings have been reproduced, and we have sound recordings from 1860, which is pretty incredible. But we have to remember that they were not designed, they were not recorded in the intent of perhaps playing the back, or maybe the desire to, but there was no ability to. That's very important. There were several other people that, of course, had ideas on sound recording, but eventually it fell to Edison to basically do it. One of the other things I find rather interesting about sound recording, and of course in its original inception, it was mind-boggling because it didn't make any sense. You have to understand something, that sound recording was science fiction in all intents. If you think about it, when you look at Star Wars today, or you watch even Star Trek, where they sit there and transport people through the air, that looks fanciful to us, but you know something? Somebody's going to figure it out eventually. It'll happen, even though we say it won't. But if I went to someone and said, I have invented a replicator, or I can transport people through the air, people would think I'd be out of my mind. Same thing for Edison when he came up with sound recording. Professors at Harvard said it was impossible. Everyone said that sound recording, sound is of the ether. It's not something that you can capture and map per se, or at least capture on a surface and replay it. Well, they understood physics. It is a fortune that Edison did not. And he invented it. Now, it was born prematurely in many regards, and definitely issued prematurely. Caught a lot of attention, but then kind of died because there wasn't anything you could do with it. But I want to take this in a totally different level. The phonograph could have been invented 100, 200 years before it was. There's nothing about the original concept of the phonograph that could not have been done in the 18th century. There was metalworking. You could smooth things out. You could make grooves on a mandrel. You had lead foil. You had all these things that that could have done. And can you imagine what could have been recorded? Can you imagine who we would have heard, whose voices? And perhaps how would the phonograph had progressed from that period? It's only fancy in thinking that way, because it wasn't until 1877, and actually the recordings that we do hear that exist, like let's say from 1878, there's tinfoil recordings. I've heard one on YouTube in Schenectady, but also there are others I have seen that are folded up in envelopes and things like that have never been heard yet. And it sure will be interesting in the future to see what is on them and see what they possess. But you have to think another thing about recorded sound is it is really the first time machine. It captured time. It captured a moment of time that could be replayed in perpetuity. Today, we take it all for granted. Sound recordings all around us. And we don't look at it with wonder. We don't look at it with amazement. But think about it. Isn't it amazing? It should be thought that way, because if you think that sound recording isn't incredible, just tear it apart for a minute and look at it, or think of a world today without it. The reason I'm able to capture my voice is because of a form of sound recording, of course very far advanced from what Edison did, but its concept of capturing sound and playing it back is the same. Of course, today we have film, which is partially due to Edison, and of course we have all kinds of digital and electronic recording, which was so far from the realm of Edison that it would be looked upon as science fiction back then, just like a replicator or a transporter would look to us. But I will say this, as a very positive viewer of technology, that technology will find the answer. People will find the answer eventually. Probably not in our lifetimes, but these ideas will continue. These thoughts will continue. And the dreams that once existed in one will definitely be transported to another, at least in that form. Ideas will continue, just like a transporter will someday in the future. But think about it when you listen to a sound recording, be it new or be it old. No matter what you're listening to a performance then, not now. Because that's the very nature of a sound recording. It is time that's captured. And the 20th century is the first century mapped out through the medium of sound. The 21st will be mapped out in so many different ways, but still there will be this record of sound, of sight, of hearing amazing things, seeing people come to life again in front of us, or to hear them breathe, to hear them do something, to hear them live. Because in a sense, that sound recording itself has given immortality to those who use it, and that we can share generations, we can share time with our great-great-grandparents, and we will be able to share time with our great-great-grandchildren. What's more amazing than that?